Okay, so what are enzymes? Well, enzymes are really important molecules in the body, and most enzymes are made of proteins, right? And what are proteins? Long strands of amino acids. And there's hundreds and hundreds of different proteins in the body that have different functions, and some of them being enzymes. And what do they do? Well, they help accelerate chemical reactions in the body. So they act as catalysts, meaning I have two molecules that need to combine to form one molecule. Well, there'll be an enzyme to accelerate that process. Okay? Or I have one large molecule that needs to be broken down into two smaller molecules. Well, the body's going to have an enzyme to accelerate that process. And typically, because of the enzyme existing, less energy is needed for the reaction. Okay, so there's many different types of enzymes in the body, and any one particular enzyme has only certain substances that can fit into it, like a lock and a key. So the substrate is the molecule that's fitting onto the enzyme that's going to undergo a reaction. Okay, so enzymes are very specific to certain substrates. Okay, so enzymes can participate in breaking down a large molecule to multiple smaller molecules, or other enzymes can be involved in taking smaller molecules as the substrate and making a bigger molecule. So basically all metabolic reactions in the body require an enzyme that acts as the accelerator for that particular reaction. So why do we care about enzymes? Well, we can use certain drugs to accelerate an enzyme. We could use certain drugs to block an enzyme if we wanted to stop the process from taking place. Okay, so you're going to hear about enzymes very frequently in pathophysiology. Okay, now let me give you an example. You just had a spaghetti dinner. Okay, spaghetti is mainly carbohydrates, which are long strands of sugar molecules. And the spaghetti, which is long strands of sugar molecules called carbohydrates, need to be broken down into simpler sugars in order to be absorbed by the body, because the body can't absorb large molecules of carbohydrates in the digestive tract. So what does it do to break down the carbohydrates? It uses an assortment of different enzymes that can break down the long strands of the carbohydrate into simple sugars that can then be absorbed. So a perfect example of where you would have enzymes would be in your gastrointestinal tract. But you have enzymes in your cells, you have enzymes in an assortment of organs of the body. So just remember, they're meant to accelerate a metabolic process, either to build a bigger molecule or to break down a molecule into smaller products. Okay, and this image is showing you exactly that, right? So in the first image at the top, you see a substrate coming in to the enzyme. The substrate and the enzyme are a perfect fit. This enzyme is meant for this particular metabolic process, and and the substrate in combination with the enzyme is broken down. The bonds are weakened in the substrate due to the enzyme, and you end up with two products, which was the whole intention of the metabolic process. At the bottom of the slide, you see two substrates coming together. So two molecules, for example. And what does the enzyme do? It solidifies the two substrates, resulting in one product. Okay, so enzymes are very important for metabolic reactions in the body. They speed them up. They use less energy. And as I said, you'll see as the modules go on, enzymes become sites of where we can block them or slow down certain processes or accelerate certain processes in the body. So here's an example of an enzyme, say in the digestive tract. You've ingested the sugary substance sucrose, which is in many foods, many drinks. Sucrose attaches to an enzyme, and with the enzyme, the substrate, which is sucrose, is broken down and released as fructose and glucose. Okay, and why do we need this to happen? Well, we need glucose as the primary form of energy in the body. So even fructose will be finally converted to glucose and used as glucose in the body. Okay, so and then the process will happen again with another sucrose molecule. Okay, and this enzyme would be very specific for sucrose. So you can imagine how many hundreds and hundreds of enzymes there are, each one specific for a certain reaction. Now, we spoke a few slides earlier about the importance of water in the body, water being about 65% of your body's composition, okay, H2O. And when we refer to other molecules, we can describe those molecules as hydrophilic, meaning they like being around water. They like to dissolve in water. So, for example, oxygen that comes into your system through your lungs easily dissolves into the bloodstream. And then after dissolving into the bloodstream, it's going to go into your red blood cells and bind to hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide, another example, that's released from metabolism in cells into the bloodstream as waste, and then is crosses the blood vessel alveoli membrane in the lungs to be breathed out, right? So your body gets rid of carbon dioxide by breathing it out in your lungs or through your lungs. But carbon dioxide is also hydrophilic. It easily dissolves into the blood, which is mainly a watery substance. Hydrophobic means I want to hide from water, right? I want to avoid mixing with water. And that is typically anything that's fatty. So fatty acids or oils, they don't interact with water in the bloodstream. Okay, they don't dissolve with it. So when we're transporting fats and oils in the body, they typically need molecules that transport them because they don't dissolve into the body. Okay, so when you eat an oily or a fatty meal, the fat that's absorbed from the body now needs to be transported by certain proteins in the body because the water and the oil just don't want to see each other. Okay? When we're talking about cells, cells have a membrane around them that keeps the outer world and the inner world of the cell separate. And you'll see that that cell membrane has a hydrophilic part, which is the part that faces the fluid outside of the cell, and the fluid inside the cell. But within the cell membrane, it's very hydrophobic. So just know the terms hydrophilic, hydrophobic. Okay, so we're going to just talk a bit about cell membranes of the body. And a cell membrane is that membrane that surrounds every cell of your body. And it acts as a barrier to every single cell in your body, which is going to be millions or billions of cells, right? So, and your cell membrane is essentially made up of phospholipids. And phospholipids have a hydrophilic component, which is the phosphate part, and a hydrophobic component, which is the lipid part. And that's why we call them phospholipids. Okay? So what's going to be facing the outside of the cell membrane? The phosphate part, because it's hydrophilic. What's going to be hiding deeper in the cell membrane? The hydrophobic tail, which is made of lipids, because lipids are fats and they don't want to meet water. So the cell membrane is actually made up of a phospholipid bilayer. So on the outside, you have a phosphate head with lipids going inwards, but the inside of your cell is also composed mainly of water. So there's going to have to be another phosphate head there with lipids coming inwards. Okay, so it's a biphospholipid layer. Okay, so understand the terms hydrophilic and hydrophobic because really they come into effect when we're talking about the cell membrane.